the firearms first and then go to court. Take the firearms first and then go to court. Take the firearms first and then go to court. We have to do something very decisive. Number one, you can take the guns away immediately from people that you can adjudge easily are mentally ill, like this guy. You know, the police saw that he was the problem. They didn't take any guns away. Now, that could have been policing. I think they should have taken them away anyway, whether they had the right or not. They should have taken them away anyway, whether they had the right or not. They should have taken them away anyway, whether they had the right or not. They should have taken them away anyway, whether they had the right or not. Whether they had the right or not. A lot of times, by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. But take the guns first, go through due process second. Florida. But take the guns first, go through due process second. Florida. But take the guns first, go through due process second. Florida. But take the guns first, go through due process second. Florida. But take the guns first, go through due process second. Florida. But take the guns first, go through due process second. Trumpism, or as some people call it, America First, is very, very simple. Low taxes and regulation. The most powerful military, tariffs and taxes on other countries who have taken advantage of the United States and which will make the USA rich, debt-free again in very quick order. And if countries want to take from the United States, they must pay for the privilege of taking. Protection of our undersea Second Amendment. Protection of our undersea Second Amendment. Protection of our undersea Second Amendment. Great health care. Low energy prices through energy independence and even dominance. Parental power on school boards. Life. Strong borders. And so much more. Second Amendment. Great health care. Low energy prices through energy independence and even dominance. Second Amendment, great health care. Second Amendment, great health care. Low energy. Americans built this nation. We built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense? Right? African Americans built this nation. We built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for.
Kim Kardashian West met President Trump at the White House Wednesday to advocate on behalf of a woman serving a life sentence. Trump at the White House Wednesday to advocate on behalf of a woman serving a life sentence. The president tweeted this picture from their meeting. Kardashian said she was there to talk prison reform and to discuss the case of Alice Marie Johnson. Johnson has served 21 years of a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The 63-year-old was convicted for a nonviolent drug offense in 1996. Kardashian West says she became aware of Johnson's story after seeing a video from the news outlet Mike. CBS News White House reporter Jacqueline Alamany joins me now. Jackie, this is such an interesting intersection of pop culture and politics. Interesting intersection of pop culture and politics. Interesting intersection of pop culture and politics and policy here. What can you tell us about the origins of this meeting?
Yeah, and I first want to let everyone know that we did touch base with a representative from Alice Johnson's legal team who gave us a readout of Kardashian's meeting with Trump. And he did not make a decision on whether or not he's going to pardon Alice Johnson. But as you just said, the origins of this meeting are murky. Kim Kardashian became in touch with Jared Kushner months ago. with Jared Kushner months ago, according to Johnson's legal team, and they just started discussing prison reform, an issue that Kardashian became passionate about after seeing this video about this grandmother, Alice Johnson, who's serving a life sentence, and decided to, take the case on as her own, dedicated a legal team to it, and ultimately ended up today at the White House advocating for Johnson and for prison reform and sentencing reform, which is an important addition to the conversation here.
And talk to me about Jared Kushner specifically. And talk to me about Jared Kushner and talk to me about Jared Kushner specifically. He's got a personal connection. So, specifically, he's got a personal connection. 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 So he's currently backing legislation that aims to lower recidivism by rehabilitating low-risk offenders. And that aims to lower recidivism by rehabilitating low-risk offenders. Why is this such an important issue to him?
So this has been Jared's quiet pet project, actually. So this has been Jared's quiet pet project, actually. So this has been Jared's quiet pet project, actually, for the. So this has been Jared's quiet pet project, actually, for the past year. It's only really become very public today. And this is a very passion project for him because his father. This is a very passion project for him because. This is a very passion project for him because his father obviously served a year in prison after for tax evasion and campaign finance violations. For him because his father obviously served a year in prison after for tax evasion and campaign finance violations. And for him because his father obviously served a year in prison after for tax evasion and campaign finance violations. And 25-year-old Jared Kushner spent his 20s visiting his father in Alabama at a federal. 5-year-old Jared Kushner spent his 20s visiting his father in Alabama at a federal prison. 5-year-old Jared Kushner spent his 20s visiting his father in Alabama at a federal prison. 5-year-old Jared Kushner spent his 20s visiting his father in Alabama at a federal prison. And so he, according to friends and people within the White House, decided to use his platform to, affect change on something that he's personally passionate about. And friends and people within the White House decided to use his platform to, affect change on something that he's personally passionate about. Friends and people within the White House decided to use his platform to, affect change on something that he's personally passionate about. And he's still very close with his father, 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 and speaks with him on a consistent basis. Speaks with him on a consistent basis. Speaks with him on a consistent basis. Speaks with him on a consistent basis.
It's interesting to hear that because we all remember candidate Trump on the campaign trail saying, I'm the candidate of law and order.
Right.
That was a controversial law and order.
Right.
Law and order.
Right.
Law and order.
Right.
That was a controversial phrase for some people for many different reasons. And in the past, the Trump administration has pushed for stricter sentencing, specifically when it comes to drug offenses. So what are the chances of the president in this particular case granting a pardon?
Yeah, it's a really interesting juxtaposition here, right? Because you see the celebrity president with the reality TV show star of our generation, and that makes a lot of sense to us. But on the other hand, this is, as you said, the law and order president who actually has advocated for tougher mandatory minimums, who has an attorney general who says that drug laws made our country safer. General who says that drug laws made our country safer. And general who says that drug laws made our country safer and has wanted to take the country backwards and has rolled back a lot of Obama-era reforms, prison reforms. So, it's unclear whether or not the president will grant Johnson a pardon, but we do know he is susceptible to these celebrity interactions. He just pardon, but we do know he is susceptible to these celebrity interactions. Pardon, but we do know he is susceptible to these celebrity interactions. Pardon, but we do know he is susceptible to these celebrity interactions. He just pardoned Jack Johnson last week after a Sylvester Stallone raised the issue with him. Pardoned Jack Johnson last week after a Sylvester Stallone raised the issue with him. After a Sylvester Stallone raised the issue with him. after Sylvester Stallone raised the issue with him. So, while Johnson's legal team wants us to look past the celebrity of Kim Kardashian and really focus on the case, it might be very well Kim herself who leads the president to pardoning Johnson. Kim herself who leads the president to pardoning Johnson. Kim herself who leads the president to pardoning Johnson.
We also have an exciting announcement to ensure former inmates can overcome some of the greatest barriers to employment, including limited access to transportation, which is needed for interviews and for jobs. To make this announcement, I'd like to invite up a very special guest and a powerful advocate for not only justice reform, but just a good person. And I hear she's starting to study law. She's also one of the most successful people in the entertainment business. Soon she'll be one of the most successful lawyers. I hate to tell all my lawyers back there, but I knew her father, and I tell you, she's got good genes, that I can tell you. Good genes for everything. And she's been a real friend, and her husband has been a real friend of mine, Kim Kardashian West. Husband has been a real friend of mine, Kim Kardashian West. Husband has been a real friend of mine, Kim Kardashian West.
It really is such an honor to be here today, so thank you. My whole journey with criminal justice reform started about a year ago when I came to see the president after speaking to Ivanka and Jared, who really, after speaking to Ivanka and Jared, who after speaking to Ivanka and Jared, after speaking to Ivanka and Jared, who after speaking to Ivanka and Jared, who really fought for me to get here, and I pled the case of Alice Johnson, who the president granted clemency to, and after that, I really spent so much time going to different prisons because I really had no connection to anybody on the inside, and really just felt like for me, I am at the place in my life that I wanted to make a difference and just wanted to do the right thing, but I didn't know how or what to do or even really what was going on. And so after going to visit so many different prisons and really sitting down with lifers, with every situation you can possibly imagine, my heart just completely opened up and I wanted to do more. So I started to study the law, which is, law school basically in California. And my attorneys are here today, Aaron and Jessica from Cut 50. Thank you. So the best part of it is I learned so much that I don't even know if, I don't want to speak for anybody in law school, but I learned so much just basically working on memos and being the assistant to them while the First Step Act was happening, and learning how you get bills passed and working on it from the ground up. So to get the president's support and to see it come to fruition was magic. And the one thing that I just realized that needed so much support that I'm happy to help and be supportive where I can, was the re-entry of people coming home and seeing the lack of support that really existed, whether it's housing or the amount of letters that I get with people just needing transportation to job interviews, to jobs. These people want to work. They want the best outcome. And I'm so happy to be here today amongst people that want the same thing and that really believe in supporting their reentry. So I'm so happy to announce today that we have a ride share partnership where formerly incarcerated people will be gifted gift cards so that they can get rides to and from job interviews, to and from jobs, family members, and that is so important.
Yeah, Kelly, according to police, in the moments before Christina Spacuzza was killed, she was pleading for her life. And they say they know this because the dash cam inside her Uber was recording and they watched it all play out. Police say the tracking of Calvin Crew began before he got into Christina Spacuzza's Uber here along Britton Avenue in Pitcairn at 9:14 Thursday, February 10th. Police say the Uber was ordered by Crew's girlfriend, Tania Mullen, at 8:53 p.m. And from the second Crew stepped inside for the ride to Dersham Street in Penn Hills, police say phones were keeping record and Spacuzza's dash cam was recording. During that ride, investigators say Spacuzza begged for her life. They say the images on her camera show Crew holding a gun to her head while she told him, "Come on, I have a family. I'm begging you. I have 4 kids. Please take that off me." Before they say Crew removed the camera. Police say they found the dash cam with the SD card inside near a fence along Dersham Road at what was to be the end of this trip. But they say Spacuzza's cell phone was still tracking. And according to investigators, it was at the spot in Monroeville where her body was found an hour after the trip began. Police say Spacuzza's phone was later found beneath the Westinghouse Bridge near the railroad tracks. And on it, investigators say several banking and online money transfer apps were open. And according to the complaint, at some point during that night, Crew's girlfriend, Mullen, who they say ordered the Uber, texted him, quote, "I am not going to jail if we get caught." Police say that interaction is also now under investigation.
I can't speculate to what was in her mind or her thought process during those messages, but what I can tell you is that the detectives are going through all the data from all the phones and tried to make those connections and in consultation with the district attorney's office.
And police say that evidence may lead to additional charges.
This president deserves the support of the Black community because he's earned it.
There is a silent majority of us that see you, see what you're doing, see what you did for HBCU schools. That was actually the deal for us.
I wager to say that there is no American president since Lincoln that has had the impact for Black America that President Trump has had.
Joe Biden supported the crime bill in 94.
He has improved.
Joe Biden supported the crime bill in 94. Joe Biden supported the crime bill in 94.
He has imprisoned Black America, basically. He has imprisoned Black America, basically. He has imprisoned Black America, basically.
Trump supported the NAACP and Black youth like myself.
Basically.
Trump supported the NAACP and Black youth like myself.
Basically.
Trump supported the NAACP and Black youth like myself.
Basically.
Trump supported the NAACP and Black youth like myself in 87.
He's a businessman. He's bringing businesses back into America.
Bringing jobs back to America.
I'm very proud of. African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded. I'm very proud of. African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded.
Our paper that came out in 2015 looked at the fact that after a century of progress on mortality, toward the end of the 20th century, mortality rates for white non-Hispanics in the U.S. started to move in the wrong direction. Toward the end of the 20th century, mortality rates for white non-Hispanics in the U.S. started to move in the wrong direction. White non-Hispanics in the U.S. started to move in the wrong direction. 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 And this put us at odds with other rich countries. It put us at odds with the other English-speaking countries where in middle age, mortality continues to fall at about 2% a year. Where in middle age, mortality continues to fall at about 2% a year. Where in middle age, mortality continues to fall at about 2% a year. And in America, that stopped happening. In America, that stopped happening. In America, that stopped happening. We tried to dig deeper to find out what the heck is going on here. And what we're finding is that for every successive birth cohort, so people born, say, in 1960 relative to 1950, or 1980 relative to 1970, what we call deaths of despair, of despair, of despair, of despair, of despair, deaths from suicide, from drug overdose, from alcohol-related liver diseases are on the upswing. Are on the upswing. Are on the upswing, and each successive birth cohort looks like they're at higher risk.
There really is a decline of the American working class, which
risk.
There really is a decline of the American working class. Decline of the American working class. Decline of the American working class, which it reached its heyday with the blue-collar aristocrats of the early 1970s. Aristocrats of the early 1970s with good union jobs and a job you could get where you got on the promotion line and you got a promotion every year and you built a middle-class life for yourself and your family, and that gave a whole mode of existence, which was very important to people. And achieving that mode of existence has become harder and achieving that mode of existence has become harder and harder. And achieving that mode of existence has become harder and harder.
The popular press has been saying that this is a rural problem or this is a problem in Appalachia. And indeed, that is true. But by geography, this is happening throughout the U.S. It's happening throughout the U.S. It's happening throughout the U.S. Mortality rates overall are rising in almost every state. New Jersey, New York, California being the only exceptions. So this is a problem in cities. It's a problem in suburbs. It's a problem in rural areas. And the people who are really getting hammered are people with less education. Getting hammered are people with less education. Getting hammered are people with less education. It's almost as if now there are two Americas, one for people who went to college and one for people who didn't. And it's the people who didn't go to college who are actually facing these larger mortality rates. And it's the people who didn't go to college who are actually facing these larger mortality rates. And it's the people who didn't go to college who are actually facing these larger mortality rates. The opioid crisis in America, it certainly is an accelerant to what's been going on. There are enough prescriptions written for heavy-duty painkillers now in America to feed every adult in America around the clock for a month. This paper for Brookings has already filled my email box this morning with letters from people who want to tell us their stories about people they've lost to suicide, about people they've lost to suicide, about people they've lost to suicide, people they've lost to drugs, suicide, people they've lost to drugs, suicide, people they've lost to drugs, or their own fears about growing old, fears about growing old, fears about growing old, fears about growing old and not having enough resources.
We've got a very vulnerable group here that's been very badly hurt in lots of ways. And these people in middle age, say from 50 to 54, 45 to 54. These people in middle age, say from 50 to 54, 45 to 54. These people in middle age, say from 50 to 54, 45 to 54. And when we're talking about health and health insurance, it's very important to make sure these people are protected. And I think when people are thinking about health reform, which there's a lot of discussion about health reform these days, they should certainly look at our paper and realize what is happening to these people already and take that into account when they design new systems.
Celebrations are marking the Lunar New Year, the year of the ox, and that includes fireworks. Artists in China threw molten iron against a wall to create these effects. The pandemic, though, has again put a damper on most festivities. And in this country, what should be a celebratory time coincides with a disturbing surge of racist attacks against Asian Americans. With a disturbing surge of racist attacks against Asian Americans. Here's CBS's Nancy Chen.
This surveillance footage shows a 71-year-old Asian grandmother violently shoved to the ground, her purse stolen. Just one of several attacks in California's Bay Area recently. A 91-year-old man pushed in Oakland's Chinatown, one of 3 attacks that day. 84-year-old Thai American Visha Ratanapakdi knocked over while out for a walk. He died a few days later from his injuries. His family saying they believe it was rooted in racism.
This guy should not be allowed back on the street. He should be charged with murder. If you see the video, there's nothing non-intentional about it.
Asian American leaders say these attacks are a trend, not isolated incidents.
What we are seeing is just the tip of the iceberg of what is actually happening in the communities.
John Yang is the president of Asian Americans Advancing Justice and blames, in part, anti-Asian rhetoric surrounding the pandemic.
The Asian American community has been faced with effectively 2 pandemics. The first is the COVID-19 pandemic, but the second pandemic that we have faced is also a virus. It's a virus of racism that we have faced.
Asian Americans Advancing Justice has cited at least 3,000 anti-Asian incidents since last February. In New York City, there was an 867% increase in Asian hate crime victims in 2020 compared to the year before. NYPD has created a hate crimes task force.
Hello.
And police in Oakland's Chinatown are
residents in San Jose, especially in Little Saigon, to be fearful this holiday season and beyond.
While we live in different places and our families came from different countries, we take your safety seriously. And we take it personally.
Backing up their words, San Jose police made 6 arrests in September after an extensive investigation. These men have been linked to at least 170 incidents of robbery, theft, and burglary that targeted members of the AAPI community. Theft and burglary that targeted members of the AAPI community. Police say these men specifically targeted more than 100 women because they were Asian American.
An attack like this is really an attack against the basic premises of this country, that as Americans, we are all entitled to equal and fair treatment under the law, and that we should all treat one another with respect. So because of those reasons...
search for the New York City subway shooter ending in an unexpectedly calm manner.
We were able to shrink his world quickly. There was nowhere left for him to run.
Police taking Frank James, who was recharging his phone on a busy Manhattan street, into custody without incident. The 62-year-old had slipped into the crowd and disappeared yesterday after opening fire on a subway car in Brooklyn, injuring 29 people and leading authorities on a full-scale manhunt encompassing several states. Bystanders capturing his arrest on camera, videos flooding social media.
I knew it was him, like, instantly, and I told my wife, I was like, sweetheart, we gotta go. The subway shooter's right behind us.
Lee Vasu is a local artist who owns a gallery just blocks from where today's events unfolded. He says he recognized the suspect right away.
I kept my distance safely, but I did not let him out of my sight until I was able to tell a police officer that there he is.
I told him, guys, trust me, this is the guy.
Zach DeHaan, who is in a nearby store, says he spotted James and flagged down police.
I see the police walking from over there. I told the police, this is the guy. He did the problem in Brooklyn. This guy, catch him, guys, catch him. And he catch him. Thank God we catch him.
Authorities say it was a Crime Stoppers tip that led to James's capture. But in an almost unbelievable turn of events, they say he was the one who made that call.
He said to the police, I believe you're looking for me. He gave his location as a McDonald's, and that's where police were sent. Problem is, when they arrived, he wasn't there.
They start driving around the neighborhood looking for him. They see him on the corner of St. Mark's and First, and they take him into custody. No incident and take him into custody.
Frank, why? Why those people?
Tonight, James is being held in federal custody, charged with terror-related offenses.
This was a combination of good police work and good luck.
Authorities laid out a detailed timeline of James' movements leading up to today's arrest. They say investigators poured over hours of surveillance video trying to piece together what happened, and that they began focusing on James after discovering the first bits of evidence on the subway platform, finding 2 bags, one containing fireworks, the other a Glock, tracing that gun back to James, who they say purchased the weapon legally in Ohio in 2011. Authorities say there were marks on the gun, attempting to deface the serial number and perhaps avoid connection with the firearm. They also recovered several bank cards belonging to James.
Criminals always make mistakes. Good detectives find those mistakes and turn them into evidence.
According to law enforcement, the day before the attack, James rented this U-Haul in Philadelphia with one of those cards. Surveillance cameras show that very same U-Haul crossing the Verrazano Bridge into Brooklyn hours before the shooting. Authorities say approximately 2 hours later, another surveillance camera captured a man believed to be James wearing a hard hat and that orange vest described by witnesses and dragging a roller bag walking down the street. Police say this video, also part of the investigation, shows the suspect entering Kings Highway subway station prior to the shooting.
This station is 3 blocks from where we recovered the U-Haul truck that he rented in Philadelphia.
The attack on the Manhattan-bound N train unfolding at 8:26 a.m. as the train approached the 36th Street station. Authorities say James put on a gas mask, took a canister out of a bag, and opened it. This video, shot by one of the passengers, showing the smoke beginning to fill the train car. Then the suspect opened fire.
We have witnesses on the train who said he was sitting in the back corner of the second car and he popped the smoke grenade. And we have one witness who says, what did you do? He goes, oops, and then he pops the 2, brandishes the firearm, and fires 33 times.
His face.
This survivor telling CNN he was sitting right next to the shooter when the attack began.
To the back, this pregnant woman was in front of me. I was trying to help her. I didn't know there were shots at first. I just thought it was a black smoke bomb. She said, I'm pregnant with a baby. I hugged her. And then the bum rush continued. I got pushed, and that's when I got shot in the back of my knee. I saw people with blood all over their clothes. I saw people literally on top of each other, crowding over each other, trying to get out of the way, trying to not be seen. people are just panicking.
Incredibly, there were no fatalities. Authorities say the extended magazine in the shooter's gun jammed, which they say undoubtedly helped save lives.
36th Street and 4th Avenue. That's where multiple people shot.
I was a few carts down, and the train conductor told everyone to get on the train, and I was scared.
29 people were treated at nearby hospitals, 10 with gunshot wounds, 5 in critical condition. 9 remain in the hospitals, all in stable condition. In the chaos, police say James boarded another train, blending in with all the frightened commuters who had no idea the suspect was amongst them.
That after firing his weapon 33 times at innocent New York City subway riders, Mr. James boarded an R train that had pulled into the station, went one stop up, and exited at 25th Street Station.
14 minutes after the attack, authorities say this video shows James emerging from the subway and disappearing into the Big Apple.
It appears that Frank James was able to just blend in with the crowd.
Copy that. Here we go. All right, this is getting serious. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Holy Christmas. Oh boy. We've got two CHP cruisers. What is going on, guys? Hello, I'm Mark Brown.
The words are nothing short of hate-filled. And Lihi Aharon says she and others were on the receiving end. It was December 12th when Aharon says she asked this woman to move her belongings from a train seat so she could sit down. But she says the woman refused, so instead she and her friend sat across from her and next to a Jewish man.
And I sat down, and that man was a visibly Jewish man sitting there. Realized we're speaking Hebrew, and she started cursing at us and telling how Jews should be killed and Allah will kill them.
Aharon says she decided to record the rant, but says it only enraged the woman and she knocked the phone out of her hands. Then she says the woman attacked.
She came close to me and she pointed at me, and in a second she grabbed my face like she's trying to pull it off my face. Like she's trying to pull it off my face. Like she's trying to pull it off my face. And in a second she grabbed my face like she's trying to pull it off my face. And in a second she grabbed my face like she's trying to pull it off my face. And I was so shocked.
Aharon says she fought the woman off after she was scratched in the face and pushed the emergency button. The woman was arrested after she was scratched in the face and pushed the emergency button. After she was scratched in the face and pushed the emergency button. After she was scratched in the face and pushed the emergency button. The woman was arrested at the Wall Street stop, but the verbal tirade continued. Aharon is being represented by the Lawfare Project, a civil rights legal group that helps Jewish victims of hate crimes.
There was probably no other way to see the crime than as an anti-Semitic hate crime, based on the video, based on the witnesses.
Aharon says she wants
then as an anti-Semitic hate crime. Then as an anti-Semitic hate crime. Then as an anti-Semitic hate crime, based on the video, based on the witnesses.
Aharon says she wanted to share her story to show hate is still out there. The woman was charged with assault and the NYPD Hate Crimes Task Force is investigating.
rebuild after his store was completely destroyed by looters. For 15 hours, he waited for police. As Les Trent reports, it's not just the loss of one man's business, but the loss of a lifeline for the community.
Oh my God! A shopper cannot believe what she sees when she enters her local supermarket to buy groceries for her family.
This is sad. This is sad.
For 15 hours straight, looters have laid waste to the store. Some of them are still inside.
This is the problem.
This surveillance video shows the first moments of the break-in. And this was the scene at the ShopRite today. A heavy National Guard presence. Everything here wiped out. No meat left on the counters. Look at this. Rib chop right there, barbecue spare ribs. Local resident Rashawn Howard went on Facebook to plead for help.
Come down here and help us clean this ShopRite, please.
I spoke with him today.
For an owner that does so much for our community, that gives people a second chance, opportunity to work. These are African Americans in this community that he employs, and you destroying this market like this now unemploys them for weeks.
Sandy Brown and her husband own the ShopRite. Did anyone call the police?
Numerous times.
What happened?
Nobody would come. And we were very distraught, my husband and I. It was a very helpless feeling.
The store was the lifeblood of the neighborhood in West Philadelphia.
This is your neighborhood ShopRite, where you eat, where you shop, where you get your food. I need somebody to please explain to me how this represents getting justice for George Floyd.
The mayor and
represents getting justice for George Floyd. Represents getting justice for George Floyd. Represents getting justice for George Floyd. Represents getting justice for George Floyd.
The mayor and police commissioner toured the wreckage and were shouted down by local residents who are now faced with the grim reality.
Walking into this store in Tioga and blowing up an ATM. And Jennifer, you have new details, including new surveillance.
Yes, that's right. The surveillance video shows the power of this explosion. Police say thankfully no one was hurt, but there was a store clerk inside. He said it was traumatic. He was all alone, and this happened during the overnight hours.
They put like a bomb inside the machine.
Moments before the explosion, if you look closely, the person in the gray New Balance sweater is fidgeting by the ATM. He signals to leave, and all three run out of the store. Muhammad Umar, you see here, running just as the explosion goes off.
I took a look at the camera, and I saw like a bomb inside the machine started to like.
He's talking about the smoke that started hissing in front of the ATM, which seconds later rocked the small convenience store. Umar says he dropped to the ground, then went inside the bathroom to try to get away from the thick smoke.
I went to the bathroom to like get some breath because I can't breathe.
Over the last few years, Philadelphia police have responded to other ATM explosions and thefts. In January, witnesses heard the explosion on North 56 and Media Streets in West Philly, where police say there was an attempted ATM theft. And that same month, police say suspects got inside a store on the 7,000 block of Woodland Avenue and removed an ATM and stole cash, merchandise, and a handgun. In this latest attempt, police say the suspects may be in their teens to early 20s, wearing hoodies and masks. You can see the ATM was damaged, but Umar says the safe was not, and no cash was taken.
It's very scary, actually.
Yeah, Keith, in the last 30 minutes, Philadelphia police told us they're investigating 25 ATM incidents, including this one in West Philly where someone tried to pry it open. Now, for companies like Wells Fargo, replacing a machine is easy, but for mom and pop shops where some people rely on them like they would a bank, it's much harder. They may have to eat the cost and pay for it out of pocket, but the impact cuts deeper. As unrest and chaos descend on Philadelphia, looters are becoming bolder. Surveillance video shows a group of crooks risk their lives and the lives of eat the cost and pay for it out of pocket, but the impact cuts deeper. As unrest and chaos descend and pay for it out of pocket, but the impact cuts deeper. As unrest and chaos descend on Philadelphia, looters are becoming bolder. Surveillance video shows a group of crooks risk their lives and the lives of passing drivers to blow up an ATM at 5th and Tioga. They used explosives 10 times. Around 3 a.m. in another part of the city, this cell phone video catches another explosion. And at 2nd and Susquehanna, a blast killed a 24-year-old man trying to get some cash.
Loud explosion. I looked out the window, and it's a sad situation what happened and everything like that. But I mean, people got to realize that the loot and everything like that, destroying your own neighborhood. Now, where you gonna go really and buy stuff at?
These ATM explosions create a domino effect in the neighborhood, and to understand the impact, the national.
Really another successful job. We're very, very proud of our military. Just like we're proud of the folks in this room, we are so proud of our military, and it was another successful event.
Did you authorize it, sir?
Everybody knows exactly what happened. So, and what I do is I authorize my military. We have the greatest military in the world, and they've done a job as usual. So we have given them total authorization, and that's what they're doing. And frankly, that's why they've been so successful lately. If you look at what's happened over the last 8 weeks and compare that really to what's happened over the last 8 years, you'll see there's a tremendous difference. Tremendous difference. So.
I, Mark Alexander Milley, having been appointed the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, having been appointed the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, do so.
I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is. But I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. It is important that we train and we understand, and I want to understand white rage, and I want to understand white rage, and I want to understand white rage. And I want to understand white rage.
Come out here and use firearms against the people that are protesting. This is the messages that we're seeing. I don't know if you on social media because the news don't tell you everything. But you have to pay attention to what's going on. Or else we have a president that's trying to incite a race war. And when the borders are closed, we can't leave. You have people in here that need your help. This is when you and y'all stand together with the community, with society to stop the governmental oppression. Period. We need you.
Can you do me a favor? Can you take a kneel? Can you take a kneel?
I don't know. It ain't enough for me. It ain't enough for me.
Can you do me a favor? Can you take a kneel? Can you take a kneel?
I don't know. It ain't enough for me. It ain't enough for me.
Can you do me a favor? Can you take a kneel? Can you take a kneel?
I don't know. It ain't enough for me. It ain't enough for me.
Can you do me a favor? Can you take a kneel? Can you take a kneel?
I don't know. It ain't enough for me. It ain't enough for me.
This demonstration in West Hollywood was actually called off by organizers over safety concerns. But a lot of people showed up anyway.
You gotta tell me about the sign.
Basically, I'm tired of white people being silent and people make the memes about the Karen. The Karen's always heard for complaining to the manager. And it's time the Karens of America complain to the manager.
And there's a lot to talk to the manager about, like the constant videos of police violence. But as many clicks as footage of bad cops might get, there's also a big audience for reassuring images of good cops. Since Ferguson, after every high-profile incident of police brutality, social media seems to fill up with pictures of police hugging or otherwise being friendly to black folks. And recently, some police are being more proactive with those photo opportunities and taking a knee along with protesters.
Listen up, please. If I take a knee.
being more proactive with those photo opportunities and taking a knee along with protesters. And taking a knee along with protesters. And taking a knee along with protesters. And taking a knee along with protesters.
Peaceful matter. Peaceful matter. Peaceful matter. Peaceful matter.
Through a Black Lives Matter protest last December, she's now heading to trial after rejecting a sentencing recommendation from the New York District Attorney's Office. The incident seriously injuring several people, and some of the victims are upset with how this case is going. Here's NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard.
A major case in New York is now slated to head to the courtroom. A woman who prosecutors say drove through a protest in Manhattan last year, injuring multiple near the scene. She is now rejecting a sentencing offer. NYPD arrested Kathleen Casillo at that intersection last December, seen here being taken away by police.
From 1 second to the next, I was up in the air. Like, I didn't hear anybody coming. I didn't hear the screams. I didn't hear.
Violating Minnesota State Statute 609.50, obstructing the process, which will be a conditional crime.
Riots, protests and looting have broken out in Minnesota as Black Lives Matter supporters congregate together in support of Daunte Wright, who was killed by a police officer on Sunday. On Tuesday, police had made more than 60 arrests as protesters took to the street to beg for justice. 26-year-old Kim Potter, a white woman, was charged with the fatal shooting of 20-year-old Daunte Wright at a traffic stop on Sunday, not far from where George Floyd died. She was released from county jail after posting a $100,000 bail and faces a second-degree manslaughter charge. BLM protesters have been calling for defunding the police since last May when George Floyd was killed in police custody, and this time the protesters have been out since Sunday. Minnesota State Patrol Colonel Matt Langer has slammed any protesters who are breaking the law. He said, "The behaviours that we continue to see are unacceptable and we are not going to tolerate them. It is not acceptable and it will not be tolerated if you choose to do criminal activity and destroy property and throw objects and make it unsafe for people to come and exercise their First Amendment rights." Fox News contributor Kayleigh McEnany has condemned the protesters and says it leads to more deaths.
The bottom line is all of these folks who are defending rioting are in fact enabling a much more violent situation. National Review cited a study that found that in the 5 cities that where a viral incident with the police, a viral moment takes off and results in rioting, that they actually saw 900 excess homicide deaths. So this leads to death, to destruction, to chaos. And I would just say to all of these rioters and to those enabling it, just the words of Martin Luther King, who said, they are socially destructive riots. They are self-defeating, and I will continue to condemn riots and continue to say, my brothers and sisters, this is not the way. Let's.
Well, I say it is frightening, and it should be frightened to the entire American people that he has demanded $10 billion. And if he doesn't get it, then there may be riots this summer. Martin Luther King is nothing but a blackmailer. Be riots this summer. Martin Luther King is nothing but a blackmailer. King is nothing but a blackmailer, and he should be arrested for blackmailing because he certainly has blackmailed the United States government. Blackmailed the United States government. Blackmailed the United States government.
African Americans built this nation. We built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense? Right? African Americans built this nation. We built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense? Right? African Americans built this nation. We built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense?